Brooklyn, New York, 10:42 p.m. Shit, this isn't normal ink, Danny muttered, his hands trembling as he gently scraped the client's back with a sterile scalpel. The overhead light glared onto the wrinkled skin, where the faded black tattoo had started to dissolve under the laser. But instead of the usual pigment breakdown, something shimmered beneath. A set of golden symbols emerged, metallic, spiraling marks that gleamed faintly under the light. They were unlike anything Danny had seen in his 17 years of tattooing. They looked ancient, sacred, like they weren't meant to be seen. The man on the table remained silent, face down, his bare back arched under the glow. He was Asian, mid-40s, his body covered in time-worn ink and scars. But Danny noticed his pulse ticking faster along his neck. "Did you know this was under here?" Danny asked, voice low. The man didn't respond. He simply turned his head slightly. Eyes narrow, his tone sharp. "Stop, don't go any further." Danny frowned, but it was too late. He had already uncovered another symbol, an eye-like emblem dripping with etched blood. Encircled by unreadable glyphs, a cold current crept up his spine. The window panes of the shop quivered slightly, as if something passed by outside. Then, click, the front door locked from the outside. The rain fell in thin silver threads across Bushwick, draping the cracked pavement in a quiet shimmer. Inside a small corner shop wedged between a pawn shop and a shuttered barber shop. The neon sign of Needle Saints buzzed against the window, half-lit. Flickering red, Danny Rivera sat behind the counter, sketchpad in one hand, pencil tapping absently against his knee. The studio smelled of rubbing alcohol, paper towels, and that faint trace of ink that never quite left the walls. A weathered Wu-Tang Clan poster curled in the corner of the room. Defiant and nostalgic, it was the kind of night that dragged its feet. No bookings, no walk-ins, just Danny and a blank design he didn't care about finishing. He checked the clock, 8:19 p.m. He leaned back in his chair, blew a breath upward into his hair, and closed his eyes. Then the bell above the door rang, sharp, sudden, cutting through the quiet. Danny opened his eyes. The man who stepped through the door was soaked from the rain. But his stride was controlled, his posture upright. He wore a long gray trench coat, buttoned tightly, and a black scarf around his neck despite the warmth of late spring. There was something strange about the way he moved, smooth, measured, like he'd rehearsed every step. His presence was quiet, but commanding, the kind of energy that made you sit up straighter without knowing why. Danny straightened. "Evening," he said. The man nodded. "Are you available?" Danny looked around the empty shop, then back at him. "Looks like it." The man took another step forward. "I need a tattoo removed. Full back piece. As soon as possible." Danny raised an eyebrow. "You know that's not a one-and-done deal, right? Laser removal takes time, multiple sessions, depends on the depth, the type of ink." "I understand," the man interrupted. His voice was deep, calm. "Money isn't a problem." He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather envelope. He placed it on the counter without flourish. When it opened slightly, Danny saw the stack of neatly arranged hundreds inside. He exhaled slowly. "All right, let's start with a test patch. I'll need to see it first." The man nodded. "That's fine. You got a name?" He hesitated. "You can call me Lou." "Just Lou." Danny gestured toward the back. "Let's do this." The studio room was dim, lit by the overhead LED and a small speaker playing lo-fi beats. Danny moved with practiced ease, setting up the laser, laying out gloves, cleaning cloths, antiseptic spray. "Any allergies? Skin conditions? Surgeries I should know about?" Danny asked. "No." "Last tattoo done? When?" "Over a decade ago." Danny handed him a disposable gown. "Undress from the waist up. Lie down on your stomach." Lou removed his coat with quiet grace and pulled his shirt off. Danny froze. The man's back was covered, entirely, with an enormous tattoo. A dragon, its body wrapped in fire. Wings stretching from shoulder to lower spine. But it wasn't just the subject, it was the detail. Scales that shimmered. Flame tendrils shaped like calligraphy strokes. Symbols embedded along the spine like a hidden language. Danny had been tattooing for 17 years. He'd seen everything from prison ink to high art sleeves from Tokyo. But this was different. Not modern, not even traditional. It felt ancient. He swallowed. "You sure you want this gone?" "I need it gone." Danny clicked on the laser. Pain will feel like elastic snaps, he said, but you'll be fine. He started on the upper left shoulder. The laser hummed, releasing tiny bursts of light. Lou didn't flinch. But then Danny paused. Instead of the usual white frosting effect, something else was happening. The black ink faded, but beneath it, something remained. It shimmered gold. Fine lines, spirals, letters, symbols? No, glyphs, buried underneath the dragon tattoo. Danny lowered the laser slightly and wiped the skin with a sterile cloth. He leaned in. It wasn't just residual pigment. There was another tattoo beneath the first. And it was glowing. Did you know there was something under this? He asked carefully. Lou said nothing for a moment. Then, without turning his head, he replied, "Keep going, just don't ask questions." Danny hesitated. Every nerve in his body told him to stop. But his hands kept moving. The second layer emerged slowly. Like a photograph developing in acid. More symbols, geometric lines, a circle with a slash through it, then something that looked like an eye. He suddenly felt cold. Danny turned off the laser. "Look, man, I've seen some weird ink. People hide all kinds of stuff, gang tags, X's names, but this? This looks like it's from a museum." Lou sat up slowly. "That's because it is." Danny stepped back. "Excuse me?" "The ink beneath," Lou said, looking him straight in the eyes, "wasn't meant to be seen again." A silence fell between them. Danny stared at him, unsure whether he was being threatened or warned. Then Lou added, softly, "But now that you've seen it, you need to finish the work." The rain had turned to fog by the time Danny closed the shop. Midnight wrapped Brooklyn in a quiet hush. But his thoughts were anything but still. He couldn't shake the image of Lou's back, of the glowing glyphs. The gold peeking through black, like a secret buried in skin. There was something ancient in it. Something deliberate. The kind of thing you don't just tattoo for art. You do it to hide something. To protect it. He stayed in the studio long after locking the door. Flipping through every tattoo book he owned, most were useless. Anatomy diagrams. Shading techniques. Color theory. But one, dust-covered and long forgotten, had belonged to his mentor, Ezra Wu. It was hand-bound, pages yellowed and brittle. The old man used to joke that it came from a monk. Not Amazon. Danny opened it. Toward the back was a section in Chinese. He couldn't read most of it, but some passages had been translated in pencil. There it was again, blood metal ink. His eyes scanned the scribbles. An ink of crushed gold and iron, fused by ritual. Bound to memory, not applied for art, but for containment, used in monasteries of Lai province. Now lost. Markings are permanent unless removed with awakening fire. Next to it was a crude sketch. Symbols similar to the ones he saw on Lou's back. Beneath the drawing was one more note. Scrawled in bold. Some tattoos are not made to be removed. They are made to imprison. Danny leaned back in his chair. A cold weight settling in his stomach. Why the hell had Lou come to him? He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Danny walked the 3 blocks to Chinatown, carrying the book under his arm. He wasn't fluent in Mandarin, but he knew someone who was, Mei Lin Zhang, his ex-girlfriend's aunt. She ran a tea shop that doubled as an herbal apothecary and unofficial neighborhood archive. The bell above her door jingled as he stepped in. She looked up from her bamboo counter, her silver-streaked hair pinned neatly back. "Danny?" she said, surprised. "You look tired." He didn't bother with pleasantries. "I need help with a translation." She raised a brow, but gestured to a small table near the back. He laid the book out, flipped to the passage, and slid it toward her. She read slowly, her fingers tracing the edge of the text. When she looked up, her eyes were different, more focused, more alert. "Where did you get this?" "Old mentor, Ezra Wu." She nodded solemnly. Ezra knew things most people forgot. "This text, it's a reference to the Lai Order." Danny sat up. "What's that?" "A sect of monks, tattooists, alchemists. Legend says they could trap memories, even souls, inside the human body, using ink, gold and iron. They weren't just artists, they were guardians." Danny blinked. "Guardians of what?" "No one knows. Their monastery was destroyed over a century ago. But rumors say some survived, hiding their knowledge in living bodies. Like tattoos." She nodded slowly. Danny hesitated, then showed her the sketch from the book. "Have you seen anything like this?" She looked at it, then exhaled sharply. "This symbol means lock. The other one, she said, tapping the eye, means witness. Danny felt a chill. And this? He asked, pointing to the spiral. Mei Lin didn't answer right away. That one's forbidden, she said softly. It's called the breath sigil. It was believed to make ink alive, self-protecting, reactive. He stared at her. So if someone had this tattoo, they'd be carrying something powerful and dangerous, maybe even conscious. That evening, Danny returned to the shop, his head spinning with the implications. He didn't even hear the door open. Lou stood there, drenched again. No coat this time, just a plain black hoodie. His face was unreadable, but his eyes carried the same cold urgency. I need the second session tonight, he said. Danny hesitated. You sure about that? Yes. Danny looked at the locked door. Then you should know something first. Lou said nothing, so Danny continued. That ink under your dragon? It's not just gold. It's something older. Some kind of prison. The symbols, they're not decorative. They mean things. Lock, witness, breath. Lou didn't move. Danny added. A woman I spoke to called it living ink. Said it reacts to removal. Said it was used to trap memories. Maybe worse. Finally, Lou spoke. Then you understand why it must be removed. It's not just a prison. It's a warning. Danny frowned. Of what? Lou stepped forward. What's buried inside me doesn't want to stay hidden. He lifted his shirt and turned around. The test patch from last night had darkened. The gold now pulsing faintly beneath his skin like veins of light. The air in the room felt thicker. You saw it, Lou said. Now you're part of it. So finish what you started. Danny stared at him. And then, he nodded. He began to prep the machine again. But outside, across the street, a figure watched from the alley, a woman in a dark trench coat. Hood up, eyes locked on the glowing window of Needle Saints. She held something in her hand. A tattoo needle, ancient, iron, and she was waiting. The humming of the laser filled the studio once again. But this time, Danny's hand hesitated more often than it moved. The machine was ready. The gel was applied. Lou was lying face down, his spine arched and motionless like a stretched bowstring. But something felt wrong. The first time, it had shimmered faintly. Now, the gold under Lou's skin pulsed. Slow but deliberate, like the ink had a heartbeat of its own. Danny pressed the trigger. The laser fired in rhythmic pulses, releasing thin trails of smoke as it danced across Lou's back. But then it started. The golden lines began shifting, slowly at first, as if melting. The I symbol widened. The spiral curled inward. It wasn't a trick of light. The ink was moving, adapting. Danny pulled the laser back. Breath caught in his throat. Lou's voice was steady. Keep going. No, it's changing. It's reacting. Lou turned his head slightly. His cheek pressed to the leather cushion. That means it's waking up. And then Danny saw it. Between Lou's shoulder blades, the once hidden lines had shifted into a map, a perfect circle forming with 4 glyphs at the corners. But they weren't random. They aligned like cardinal points: north, east, south, west. Inside the circle was a new symbol Danny hadn't seen before, a triangle within a circle, crossed by 2 lines. Danny leaned closer, heart pounding. The skin around it began to redden, not with irritation, but heat. He felt warmth radiating from the mark. Lou, what is this? He asked. Lou's breath was steady. It's a key. The ink binds the coordinates of the monastery ruins. It was hidden inside me for 23 years. Danny stared. A map? You're telling me this ink is alive, and it's pointing to something? Not just something. A vault. A sealed chamber beneath the temple ruins. They thought destroying the monastery would erase the knowledge. But the monks ensured one map would survive. And you volunteered? Lou's eyes darkened. No, I was chosen. Before Danny could respond, the room temperature dropped. The glass of antiseptic bottles fogged. The mirror above the sink trembled. A sharp clang echoed from the alley outside. Danny instinctively shut the laser off and moved toward the window, careful not to make a sound. He parted the blinds just enough to see. A woman stood across the street. She was still, unnaturally still, in a black trench coat, the hood casting a deep shadow over her face. In her hand, a metal object glinted under the streetlight. It wasn't a weapon. It was a tattoo needle. Old, thick, forged iron. Someone's watching us, Danny said. Lou sat up immediately, ignoring the gel drying on his back. He walked to the light switch and killed the overheads. The shop fell into a dim red glow from the neon sign outside. "She's not here to watch," Lou said coldly. "She's here to retrieve the ink." "Retrieve it? What the hell does that mean?" "She's part of the sect of the Hollow Fang. They were the Order's rival before the fall. While we preserved knowledge, they erased it. They believe ink like this is a curse." A quiet knock echoed through the shop, not from the front door. It came from the back. Danny froze. There was only one exit, behind the supply shelves near the restroom. He grabbed the old broom handle he kept behind the counter. It was hardly a weapon, but it was something. Lou stood near the middle of the studio. Calm, bare-chested, golden marks glowing faintly behind him. "If they come in, don't talk, don't touch them, and whatever you do, don't let them see the full map." The knock came again, louder now. Then silence. Danny whispered, "We should call someone." "No time. Help me cover the ink." Danny tossed him a clean towel. Lou wrapped it around his torso like a sash, concealing the sigils as best he could. Then the back door creaked. Not opened, unlocked. Someone had already gotten inside. Across the city, in the quiet inner room of Mei Lin Zhang's tea shop, the woman from the alley stood under a paper lantern. She had arrived only minutes earlier. Silently, "I'm looking for a man," she said to Mei Lin. Her accent was light, but sharp. Mei Lin didn't flinch. "You're not the first. He carries Lai ink," the woman continued, "and he's begun unlocking it. I don't give out information freely." The woman removed her hood. Her head was shaven. Across her neck, tattooed in sharp lines, was the mark of a serpent swallowing its tail. Mei Lin's face changed. "You're Hollow Fang." The woman nodded once. "Tell me where he is, and I will spare this neighborhood from what follows." Mei Lin's voice was quiet. "The last time your kind made that promise, a city burned. Then you understand," the woman said. She turned and left as silently as she came. Back in the studio, Danny crouched behind the counter, heart racing. A single figure had entered the shop through the back, cloaked in black, face hidden behind a silver mask shaped like a fox. They moved with slow precision, like a dancer. No wasted steps, no words. Lou stepped forward. "I won't fight you," he said calmly. "There is still time to preserve the pact." The masked figure tilted their head. Then, without a word, they raised their hand, and the iron tattoo needle extended from their sleeve like a blade. Danny shouted, "Get down!" But before the attacker lunged, something in Lou's back glowed brighter, the sigils erupted in light, and the air rippled as if the ink itself screamed. The attacker hesitated. Lou turned, revealing the full map. The symbols on his back shone like gold fire. For a moment, even the masked one paused in awe or fear. Danny grabbed the fire extinguisher and hurled it. It crashed into the figure's side, buying them precious seconds. "Go!" Lou shouted. They fled through the front, Lou moving with trained precision, Danny stumbling behind. The last thing Danny saw before the studio door slammed shut was the attacker staring at the glowing sigils with reverence. Or hunger. The alley behind Needle Saints was slick with rain and echoing with footfalls. Danny's breath burned in his throat as he sprinted after Lou. Behind them, the door to the shop slammed shut with a metallic clang, sealing the attacker inside, if only briefly. "This way," Lou commanded, cutting left through a narrow corridor between buildings. The towel around his torso had come loose, exposing golden glyphs glowing dimly beneath the moonlight. They darted through shadows, past dumpsters and steel doors, before Lou suddenly ducked into an open delivery gate behind a silent noodle shop. Only when they reached the fire escape behind it, hidden behind crates of bottled soy sauce, did they finally stop. Danny bent forward, gasping, one hand on his knee. "Jesus Christ, what the hell was that thing?" Lou stood straight, barely winded. His voice was low. "A hunter, trained by the Hollow Fang, sent to retrieve the map and ensure no one who's seen it stays alive." "Great," Danny said, panting. "Fantastic. And here I thought you were just another midlife crisis case with regrets and a dragon on your back." Lou didn't smile. Danny leaned against the brick wall, finally steadying his breath. The glyphs on Lou's back were dimming now, but they'd changed shape again. Where once the spiral had dominated the center, a new mark had surfaced, like a knot, woven from ancient letters. "I saw them move," Danny said. "That wasn't some skin reaction. That was the ink." Lou nodded. then turned his head toward the moonlit sky. "They're memories," he said. "Imprisoned ones." Danny blinked. "Whose?" "I don't know," Lou admitted, "but they're not mine." They reached Mei Lin's tea shop an hour later. She opened the door without a word, as if she'd been expecting them. Danny stepped in first, dripping and rattled, but Lou's entrance brought silence. His presence had changed. He stood still, yet something about his posture, his eyes, was subtly different. Like he was listening to music no one else could hear. Mei Lin locked the door behind them and guided them to a curtained back room. The faint aroma of ginseng, incense, and old paper hung in the air. "You were attacked?" she asked. Danny nodded. "A masked one, fast, armed with some ancient tattoo needle thing. We barely made it out." She looked at Lou. "Did the sigils respond?" "Yes," he said quietly. "They exposed the full map. And more." Mei Lin's face tightened. "Then the process has begun." Danny raised a hand. "What process?" She brought out a candle, lit it, and placed it on the center table. "When the monks created the Lai ink, it wasn't just to map geography. The ink could hold consciousness, memories, identity. The monks believed knowledge was sacred, but also dangerous. So instead of writing secrets on scrolls, they embedded them into the skin of chosen vessels. The glyphs stored thoughts, visions, and personalities." Danny paled. "So what? You're saying Lou's been carrying a person on his back?" "Not a full person," Mei Lin corrected. "A vault, a living archive. But sometimes, when the ink is awakened, when laser or heat triggers the right sigils, it begins to leak." She turned to Lou. "Are you experiencing anything unusual?" Lou didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that sounded subtly wrong, he said, "I remembered a courtyard filled with wind chimes, a temple with no doors, and a man, with fire in his hands." Danny stared. "That's not your memory, is it?" Lou shook his head slowly. "I've never been to China." Mei Lin stepped closer. "This is why they hunted you. If the Hollow Fang believes the vault is awakening, they'll send more than just a scout next time. They'll send a purifier." Danny blinked. "What's a purifier?" "A killer," Lou said. "One trained to destroy vessels and burn the ink off the bone." Mei Lin unrolled a scroll on the table, an inked diagram of a human body, marked with ancient sigils and lines. "This map on Lou's back," she said, "may lead to more than a physical place. It may unlock the entire archive of the Order. Memories lost for centuries, histories erased from record. But it's in pieces." Danny said. "It's incomplete, because the vault has layers." Mei Lin said. "The ink was designed to awaken slowly. With each removal session, it reveals more, but with each glyph exposed, the host risks identity fragmentation. The monk's mind could begin to merge with Lou's." Danny looked at Lou. "So if I keep removing the tattoo, I may stop being me." Lou finished. Silence. Then Danny whispered, "Why do this? Why carry this? Why risk becoming someone else?" Lou's eyes softened for the first time. "Because someone has to remember. Someone has to keep the truth alive, even if it costs them who they are." Hours later, while Danny slept on the floor wrapped in an old blanket, Lou sat upright near the window, eyes fixed on the moonlit skyline. But inside him, the voices had already begun. Soft, whispering, in a language he didn't understand, but somehow recognized. He saw visions. A burning monastery, screaming monks, a vault door slamming shut. And above it, etched in stone, the glyph that now lived between his shoulder blades. The knot. The dreams had shifted. What began as fragments, chimes, courtyards, the scent of incense in a burning hall, were now structured, clear, and disturbingly familiar. Lou stood in the middle of a stone corridor. Walls rose on both sides, carved with glyphs identical to those on his back. Ahead, a child recited a chant, eyes closed, voice echoing like wind through old trees. Lou took a step toward him. The child turned, and it was his own face. He awoke with a jolt, breath sharp, hand reaching for something at his side, an object that wasn't there. A blade. Danny sat nearby on the shop floor, bleary-eyed, sipping tea from a chipped porcelain mug. "You talk in your sleep," he muttered. "Sounded like Mandarin, except, it didn't sound like you." Lou didn't respond. He stood, walking to the window. The glyphs along his spine shimmered faintly beneath his shirt, glowing even in daylight. It wasn't just the ink anymore, it was the energy. A presence. Something was stirring inside him, gaining confidence, taking form. Mei Lin entered the room, carrying a scroll in one hand and a small vial of red powder in the other. I found something, she said without greeting. A ritual, very old, practiced by the monks of the inner vault. They called it the severance rite. Danny looked up. Sounds friendly. It's a method for isolating a bound consciousness from its host. She continued. A way to force the ink's memory to reveal itself in external form, briefly. You mean, separate it from Lu? Danny asked. Yes, temporarily, but it comes with a cost. Lu turned. What kind of cost? Mei Lin's eyes locked with his. If the consciousness resists, it may retaliate. Some have gone mad. Others. She stopped herself. Danny filled in the blank. Didn't come back. Silence. Lu nodded slowly. Prepare it. Are you sure? Danny asked. This isn't a tattoo session. This is soul surgery. Lu met his eyes. I need to know what's inside me before it decides for me. But across the city, on the rooftop of a condemned apartment building in Harlem, another ritual was already beginning. The woman stood barefoot on the tar paper, her hood lowered, the rising sun catching the edge of her iron needle. She was known only as the Purifier. Her body bore no tattoos, only scars where ink had once been burned away. Her role wasn't to preserve memory. It was to destroy it. Behind her knelt two acolytes. Heads bowed. One held a bowl of crushed ash. The other, a folded map made from pressed human skin. She dipped the needle in the ash. Then whispered, "The vault breathes, and when it opens, the world forgets again." She looked east, toward the tea shop, hidden 3 blocks away. Then she descended the fire escape like smoke. Back at Mei Lin's, Lu lay on a woven mat, shirtless, eyes closed. Symbols had been chalked around him in concentric circles. Danny stood nervously in the corner, while Mei Lin mixed the red powder into a bowl of hot water. This tea is the trigger, she said. It'll lower his resistance, allow the ink to speak. Danny frowned. To speak? Not aloud, she clarified, but it will project. Memory will leak through skin. She handed the bowl to Lu, who drank without question. Then the room changed. The walls flickered, just slightly, like a mirage forming. Heat swelled, despite the open windows, and the glyphs on Lu's back began to move again. A low hum filled the room. Not mechanical, not musical, primal. Danny watched in horror as Lu's eyes shot open, pure gold. His body arched. He gasped once, and then it happened. A golden mist rose from his back, swirling into the air like smoke from sacred incense. It didn't dissipate. It formed. A shape. A figure. A man, clad in simple robes, bare feet, his chest marked with the same sigils that once lived only on Lu's skin. His face was calm, his presence, devastating. Mei Lin gasped. It's him. Danny stepped forward, breath shallow. Who? She whispered. The first archivist. The mist being looked at them. And then it spoke, not with words, but with thought. It pressed into their minds like wind through cloth. I am the vault. I am the page. I am the seal between what was and what must never be. Danny felt his knees weaken. The archivist turned to Lu's unconscious form. He touched Lu's forehead gently. This body is not yours to take. You are a vessel, but you carry guilt. Danny didn't understand. Guilt? Then the mist twisted, shimmered, and in a flash, they all saw the same vision. Lu, standing above a burning monastery. Dead monks at his feet. His hands red with blood. No, Danny whispered. That's not. But the vision didn't lie. And suddenly, everything made sense. Lu hadn't been chosen to carry the ink. He had stolen it. The mist dissipated violently. The archivist vanished. Lu bolted upright with a choked gasp. Eyes wide, face pale. He looked at Danny and Mei Lin, confused. Hurt. What did I do? Danny couldn't speak. Mei Lin answered for him. You destroyed the order. Lu's voice was small. I don't remember. But the ink does, she said. And just then, the windows shattered inward. Glass exploded as 3 masked figures burst into the shop. Blades drawn. Behind them, calm and silent, walked the Purifier. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Her eyes locked on Lu's back. And the ink on his skin began to scream. The first blade came through the window with a whistle. Danny ducked instinctively as glass rained down like shattered ice. Mei Lin grabbed the ritual scroll and threw a table across the entrance. But it wouldn't buy them more than a few seconds. The purifier stepped through the smoke calmly, flanked by two masked disciples, both armed with iron ink needles that gleamed like obsidian in the red candlelight. Lu stood, back still bare, his breath unsteady. Out, Mei Lin shouted. Basement. Danny grabbed Lu's arm, yanked him through the curtain behind the tea shelves. They crashed down a narrow wooden staircase, the sound of footsteps crashing above them like rolling thunder. The basement was a cramped cellar of crates and ceramic jars, but at the far end, behind a dusty lattice wall, Mei Lin revealed a rusted trapdoor. Danny blinked. What is that? She grunted as she pushed it open. Old escape route. Prohibition era. Leads into the service tunnels under Canal Street. They didn't ask questions. They dropped in. The air beneath was thick and warm. A mix of mildew, metal, and something ancient. Danny's shoes splashed into shallow water as they descended into darkness. Mei Lin slammed the trapdoor shut just as the first blow struck it from above. They'll follow us, Lu said quietly. Yes, Mei Lin replied. But down here, we know the way. The tunnels stretched endlessly, abandoned subway spurs, maintenance routes, and sealed-off passageways from a city long forgotten. The echo of their footfalls was drowned only by the rhythmic hum of dripping water and distant rumblings overhead. Danny flicked on his phone flashlight. Lu walked a few feet ahead, silent. The golden ink on his back had dulled slightly. But a new pattern had begun to emerge, one that hadn't been there even hours ago. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. A shape like a lock, with no key. You're bleeding, Danny said, noticing a thin red trail running down Lu's spine. It's not blood, Mei Lin corrected. It's memory fluid. The ink is unraveling. Lu stopped suddenly. He pressed his palm against the wall. Do you hear that? Danny looked around. Hear what? But then, he did. Whispers. Not voices. Not language. Just intent. Pressure in his ears. Like the tunnel walls were speaking. Lu turned, his eyes wide. It's calling to me. Mei Lin stepped forward. That's not the ink. That's the final seal. You've entered its core. If we go any further, you risk total merging. Danny frowned. Merging? If Lu crosses into full recall, she said, he won't be Lu anymore. He'll become the archivist, the first mind. His own memories will dissolve. Lu looked down at his hands, as if suddenly unsure they were still his. I saw the fire again, he whispered, but this time, I was inside the vault, not above it. I wasn't destroying it, I was locking it. Danny's heart pounded. You said earlier you burned the monastery. I did, Lu said, but now, I'm not sure if that was a memory. You mean? I mean, Lu cut in. The archivist may have burned it himself, to hide what he couldn't destroy. And then, he placed the vault in me. Silence. Mei Lin shook her head. Impossible. No monk would allow possession of a civilian. But what if I'm not a civilian? Lu said, voice low. What if I was part of the order, reincarnated, rebuilt, wiped, then reprogrammed to forget? Danny's skin crawled. You're saying, you've always been him? No, Lu said. I'm saying he's always been me. They reached an iron gate, half rusted shut, but Danny forced it open. On the other side was an open chamber, circular, domed, layered in tiles older than anything he'd ever seen. The entire floor was carved with glyphs. Lu stopped at the threshold, staring. It's a mnemonic well, Mei Lin said, breath caught in her throat. A lie construct, a place to force memory reconstruction. It draws the host into the mind of the archive. Lu stepped forward. No, Danny said, we're supposed to be escaping. Remember? But Lu didn't stop. He reached the center and fell to his knees. Suddenly, the chamber lit up with golden lines, pulsing like veins through the stone. The ink on Lu's back responded, flaring. A gust of warm air blasted outward as the walls around them shimmered. And then, reality shattered. Danny opened his eyes to blinding white. They were no longer in the tunnel. They stood in a courtyard made of wind and time. The sky above was parchment. The ground beneath them was ink. Lu stood ahead, alone, facing a mirror image of himself. The other Lu, the archivist, was robed in white, holding a scroll that unraveled endlessly. If you stay, he leaves, the archivist said. If you leave, he remains. Danny tried to move, but couldn't. You cannot both exist, the voice echoed. One must become memory, the other, flesh. Then the image began to splinter. Danny blinked. They were back. Lu lay unconscious in the middle of the glyph chamber, body twitching. From above, the sound of footsteps echoed. They've entered the tunnels, Mei Lin said, her voice tight. Danny pulled Lu to his feet. We're out of time, he said. He's slipping. Mei Lin unrolled a fresh scroll, her hands trembling. There's one more sanctuary, she whispered, but it's not beneath New York. Danny stared at her. Then where? They boarded the train just before dawn. Mei Lin had forged the IDs herself, names that belonged to long-deceased cousins. Paper trails fabricated from a dusty shoebox of old records. Lu, now registered as Marcus Lee, slumped silently in the aisle seat, his hoodie pulled up, eyes hidden behind dark glasses. Danny sat beside him, clutching a duffel bag full of ritual scrolls, tattoo supplies, and the emergency burner phone Mei Lin insisted they carry. The Amtrak route would take them from New York to Denver in under 40 hours. With minimal stops, a long ride, a dangerous one, if the Hollow Fang had already infiltrated the transit lines. But it was their only chance. As the train pulled out of Penn Station, Danny stared out the window. The city faded behind them like a memory Lu could no longer anchor to. Across the aisle, Mei Lin whispered low while reviewing a map printed on handmade parchment. There's a place in the Rockies, deep in the shadow of Mount San Isabel. The Lai monks called it, Shi Men, the Stone Gate. It predates the New York Vault. That site may hold the key to reversing Lu's full assimilation. Danny looked over. Why there? Because it's the only refuge the Order built without ink. It was designed to hold the mind, not the memory. He nodded slowly. A spiritual firewall. Exactly. They sat in silence for a moment. Lu hadn't spoken since they left the tunnels. His eyes remained shut, but his fingers twitched constantly, sometimes forming ancient characters in the air. Other times just trembling. Danny reached over, nudging his shoulder. Hey, you still in there? Lu opened his eyes, but they were dim, flickering gold beneath the brown. I remember a woman, he said quietly. She carved the first symbol on my spine. She said, what you carry will remember you even when you forget yourself. Danny swallowed hard. Do you know her name? Lu blinked slowly. She called herself the Gatekeeper. Mei Lin leaned forward, startled. The Gatekeeper is not a name. It's a title. There hasn't been one in over a century. She was blind, Lu added, but she could see the ink. 12 hours in, somewhere between Ohio and Indiana, Lu collapsed in the aisle. Danny caught him before he hit the floor. His skin was burning hot. The glyphs on his back bleeding through his clothes like molten gold. The conductor shouted for medical assistance. But Mei Lin stepped in. He has a rare neurological condition, she said sharply. He needs silence, not questions. She wrapped Lu in a thermal blanket and they brought him into the luggage compartment. There, under flickering fluorescence, they watched as his body convulsed and then stilled. But his mouth began to move. Soft whispers. Foreign language. Mei Lin recognized it immediately. He's chanting the vault oath, she said, from memory, word for word. But how? Danny asked. He's no longer accessing the archivist, she replied. He's becoming him. Meanwhile, in an underground chamber in Philadelphia, the purifier knelt before a massive scroll spread across a marble slab. Behind her, a council of Hollow Fang elders stood silent. She had delivered the news. The vault was awakening. The vessel had escaped, and the mnemonic seal had fractured. The eldest among them, a woman with inked tears running down her cheeks, stepped forward. Then it is time, she said. The purifier nodded. Shall I activate the witness protocol? Yes, the elder replied. Let the sleeping vaults be stirred. If we cannot destroy the archive, we will bury it beneath noise. The purifier turned to the scroll. She dipped her iron needle into her own blood, then etched a single glyph into the parchment. Po. Break. And across the globe, hidden vaults of memory, forgotten tattoo chambers, old blood ink scrolls, sealed monks' graves, began to pulse. The next morning, the train approached the Colorado border. Lu awoke with a gasp, eyes fully golden, but his voice was calm. We're near, he said. Danny leaned forward. You recognize it? I don't know how I do. Lu admitted, but I feel it, like gravity pulling my thoughts backward. Mei Lin placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Once we reach the mountains, we'll be safe. The ink won't speak in that place. The gate dampens memory resonance. Lu turned to her. It's not the ink I'm worried about anymore. It's the archivist. Danny shifted uncomfortably. You're saying he's alive, inside you? No, Lou said, then paused. I'm saying, I'm starting to agree with him. They arrived at the small town of Salida by sunset. Switching to an unmarked pickup truck arranged through an old contact of Mei Lin's. From there, they began the climb into the mountains. As they ascended, the air thinned, and the silence deepened. It wasn't just quiet, it was memoryless. Danny noticed it first. I can't remember the lyrics to my favorite song, he muttered. Mei Lin nodded. That's the gate. It suppresses surface memory. You'll get it back after we leave. Lou stared ahead, transfixed. At the top of a narrow pass, surrounded by jagged cliffs and pine trees bowed by wind, a stone arch awaited them. It was old, worn by centuries, carved in symbols that glowed only faintly in the dusk. The entrance to Shi Men. And above it, a single inscription. To enter is to forget. To remain is to remember what never was. The wind inside the sanctuary had changed. It was no longer the cool, ethereal draft of a memory-dampening gate. It howled now, charged, alive, pulling the very air taut like a drawn bow. The standing stones vibrated with silent tension as the purifier stepped forward, her boots crunching ancient dust beneath them. Danny stood at the center of the ritual circle. His hands glowed with golden ink, not drawn, but pulsing beneath the skin. The same glyphs that had once crawled across Lou's back now flickered inside Danny's veins. They were not tattoos. They were etched memories, alive and choosing. You shouldn't have been awakened, the purifier said, voice sharp and steady. You were the last scribe. You were buried in forgetting. And that's where you should have stayed. Danny clenched his fists. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know who I was. You knew, she replied. Your body did. Your hands did. Her two masked acolytes fanned out behind her. Weapons drawn, iron ink needles shaped like short blades. Their faces were unreadable, their movements disciplined. Lou lay just behind Danny, unconscious but breathing. Mei Lin crouched beside him, murmuring protective chants under her breath. Danny shifted his stance. I don't want to fight you, he said. Good, the purifier replied, because you won't win. And then she lunged. Her blade flashed in the moonlight, spinning with the practiced grace of centuries of inherited technique. Danny barely dodged, the edge grazing his forearm, just enough to draw blood. The glyphs along his arm responded, sparking like short-circuiting wires. He stumbled back. The purifier smiled. You don't know how to use it, she said. You remember what you are, but not how. Danny's mind raced. He reached inside, not into muscle or instinct, but into memory, into the vault now living within him. And it answered. The air around him rippled as gold lines etched themselves into the space between thought and skin. Without moving his hands, a shimmering sigil formed in the air, floating in place like a shield. The purifier struck again, but her blade rebounded off the glyph with a shriek of metal against energy. Danny blinked. Whoa, clumsy, the purifier sneered, but waking. Her acolytes attacked from both flanks. Danny spun, instinct taking over. He raised both hands, and the ink reacted before he finished the motion. Twin arcs of light burst from his palms, catching the attackers mid-step. They were flung backward, hitting the sanctuary's outer pillars with bone-snapping force. Mei Lin gasped. You're channeling active memory, she whispered. No one's done that since the fall. Danny turned back to the purifier. Her smile had vanished. You don't deserve the vault, she growled. You let it die once already. What are you talking about? You, she said, stepping closer, were the one who abandoned the final archive. You were supposed to seal it. But you ran. You hid in flesh. You chose forgetting. Danny's mouth went dry. Behind him, Lou stirred, but did not wake. I don't remember any of that, Danny said. Because the soul vault isn't in your mind, she hissed. It's in your guilt. Then she activated her own glyph. A red sigil pulsed across her throat, scar tissue that glowed like burning coal. And Danny saw it all at once. She had once been like him. A scribe. A failed one. I tried to preserve the memory, she said, but they said I was unworthy. That I couldn't bear the weight. Danny's voice softened. So you became a destroyer. I became necessary. With a scream, she hurled her blade, but Danny caught it midair with a sigil that flared open like a lotus. Suspended it, then shattered it with a flick of golden force. She staggered back. Danny advanced. I may have forgotten who I was, he said, but I know who I am now. And if that means carrying the vault again, so be it. You'll never hold it, she spat. Not fully. You don't have the key. And then, the ground trembled. Not metaphorically. Literally. The stone beneath them cracked. And from the earth, a symbol rose, glowing not gold, but deep white blue, a forgotten glyph. The gate below the sanctuary had begun to open. Lu, now conscious, gasped. That's not part of the Lie archives. Mei Lin's face paled. It's the Echo Vault, she whispered. The one buried not in ink, but in intention. Danny turned. What does that mean? It was theoretical, she said. A myth among the monks. A vault so powerful. It stored actions never taken. Choices that were erased before they could occur. A record of everything that almost happened. The purifier stood frozen. No, she breathed. That vault was sealed forever. The scribe was forbidden to access it. Danny stepped toward it, and the light grew. The glyphs in his body reacted, not with resistance, but resonance. They wanted him to open it. Mei Lin shouted, if you do this, there's no going back. You'll see not only who you were, but who you could have been. Danny placed his hand on the stone, and the vault opened. Danny's hand touched the glowing surface. And in that instant, the world unraveled. The sanctuary vanished, not with thunder or flame, but with silence. The wind stopped, the air thickened, and Danny found himself floating, no ground, no sky, only white, endless white. Except he wasn't alone. Ahead of him stood another man. Same height, same eyes, same scar. It was him, but not him. This version wore ornate robes, gold-trimmed sleeves. The tattoos along his arms were complete, perfectly symmetrical and humming with controlled power. The man turned. I was the scribe who chose to fight, he said. His voice was low, calm. When the hollow fang rose, I activated the vault prematurely. I tried to stop the war. Danny stared. You're a version of me? No, the scribe said. I'm you. One path, one echo. And I failed. Behind the scribe, another figure appeared, younger, less sure. His robes were stained with ash. His hands shook. I was the scribe who ran. This one whispered. I saw the archive fall. I sealed myself in forgetting. Buried the truth in flesh. Danny turned. More figures emerged from the void. One knelt before a burning city. One raised his hands over a battlefield of monks. One wore the mask of the purifier. I was the scribe who broke. That version said. When the vault was lost, I tried to kill the memory. Danny stepped back, overwhelmed. This can't be real. It's the Echo Vault. The first scribe replied. This is where every choice you could have made lives forever. And you expect me to choose between you? No, they said in unison. We expect you to remember who you are, by choosing who you will become. Meanwhile, back in the sanctuary, the ground continued to tremble. Lu lay beside Mei Lin, holding her hand tightly. He had regained some strength. But the removal of the vault ink had left him hollow, like an empty vessel that still remembered what it once carried. The purifier stood at the edge of the opening vault, her blade drawn, but unmoving. She wasn't attacking. She was waiting. Why doesn't she strike? Mei Lin asked. She's afraid, Lu murmured, because once the vault fully opens, everything she's erased comes back. The air cracked. A ring of white-blue energy shot upward from the vault, lifting Danny's body off the ground like a marionette. Is he dying? Mei Lin gasped. No, Lu said. He's being asked a question. Inside the vault, Danny stood before a mirror. Not metaphorical. A literal, towering mirror etched with glowing glyphs. Inside it, himself. But for the first time, he saw himself not as Danny Rivera from Brooklyn, but as the final scribe of the Lie Order. He wore the full regalia. The tattooing rings. The scrolls bound in golden wire. The eyes of someone who had loved memory more than himself. And yet, in the reflection's eyes, was shame. You left us, the reflection said. You ran when the gate needed to be sealed. Danny shook his head. I didn't know. I forgot. No, the reflection corrected. You chose to forget. That was your last conscious act before you broke the quill. Danny staggered back. You built the soul vault not just to preserve knowledge. The reflection continued, stepping closer, but to hide guilt. Behind him, the echoes spoke again. You failed. You hesitated. You erased us. Danny dropped to his knees. But then, A different voice rose. It was Lou's, but not in the vault. In Danny's mind. You don't have to carry it alone, Lou said. That was never the point. The echoes quieted, and for the first time, the mirror shimmered. Danny stood. He took a breath, and spoke 3 words. I remember now. The glyphs lit up, the mirror shattered, and the vault responded. Back in the sanctuary, the earth split one final time. Danny descended slowly from the air, barefoot, eyes glowing not with borrowed power, but owned power. The purifier fell to her knees. You opened it? Yes, Danny said. What did you see? I saw everything I could have been, he replied, and I chose what I am. He walked to her, unarmed. You were right, he said. I ran. I erased myself. But I did it because I believed memory should serve the living, not haunt them. She stared at him. What now? Danny looked at the open vault behind him. I seal it. You can't. I can, he said, because the archive doesn't need to be remembered, it needs to be rewritten. He placed his hand over the swirling glyph. Golden ink flowed outward, covering the stone, spiraling across the sanctuary floor. The other echoes of himself appeared, then knelt. The glyph flared once, then vanished. And the vault closed. 6 days later, the storm above Tokyo never quite lifted. Rain fell in sheets. A cold drizzle that wrapped the skyscrapers in a silvery haze. Neon signs reflected off slick sidewalks, their colors bleeding into the puddles like spilt paint from a restless artist's brush. Danny stood at the edge of the Shinjuku district. A black hood pulled low over his head. Beside him, Lou adjusted the collar of his coat, eyes scanning the crowd. Mei Lin stepped out of the alley behind them, her voice firm. We're being watched. Danny didn't need her to say it. He could feel it too. Not just the prickling sensation of being followed, but the ink under his skin responding, reacting to glyphs nearby. Echoes of ancient memory pulsed like sonar through the veins on his arms. They were close. The information the purifier had whispered before she vanished into exile had been simple, but devastating. He never left. He stayed behind. While you ran, he rewrote. And now they were here, to find Hajime Kurosawa, known to the order only as the remaining scribe, the last practitioner who had never severed himself from the archive. They entered a small tea house nestled between a ramen shop and a convenience store. At first glance, it was ordinary, aged wood, low lighting, the quiet clink of porcelain. But beneath the floorboards, they descended into a labyrinth of ink and silence. The woman guarding the elevator wore black gloves and bore a tattoo across her throat, ink so dark it reflected light. She said nothing, only scanned Danny's hands before nodding once and pressing a hidden panel. The elevator dropped. Fast. 37 floors down. It opened into stone. Not concrete. Stone. Chiseled walls. Breathing glyphs. Low lanterns. Everything written not in modern Japanese, but in the old tongue of the Lai. Lou let out a breath. It's like the sanctuary, but colder. Danny nodded. It's not a vault. It's a forge. They passed through 3 gates, each manned by silent figures whose skin was marked with animated sigils, glowing tattoos that pulsed faintly as they walked by. At the end of the corridor stood a simple wooden door. No handle, no lock, just a symbol carved into it. Show. To guard. The door opened on its own. And he was waiting. Hajime Kurosawa sat at the center of a circular room carved entirely of obsidian. His hair was silver, long, tied back. His eyes were calm, yet pierced like sharpened glass. Around him, scrolls floated in midair, suspended by ink threads, each glowing with live glyphs. He looked at Danny and spoke in perfect English. You've brought the archive. Danny stepped forward. I sealed it. I know, Kurosawa replied. But did you seal yourself? Danny hesitated. What do you want from me? I want what was always mine, Kurosawa said. I kept the words. I held the names. While you erased them. Mei Lin frowned. You were part of the council. I was more than that. He snapped. I was the counterweight. The one who understood that forgetting is not healing, it's surrender. Lou stepped between them. You've been opening the dormant vaults. Yes, Kurosawa said proudly. Because the world isn't sick from memory. It's sick from denial. Danny raised his voice. You're playing with unstable glyphs, remnants of unbound minds. You're not reviving history. You're corrupting it. Kurosawa stood slowly. The floating scrolls curled inward around him like a protective shell. Let me show you what I've built. He raised his palm. A wall peeled back. And beyond it, Danny saw something that stole his breath. A chamber the size of a stadium. Inside, rows of men and women, hundreds, suspended in transparent pods. Each one tattooed from head to toe. Each one dreaming. They are vessels, Kurosawa said. Each carries a reconstructed version of the archive. I've encoded memory into flesh. Bypassing the ancient filters. Danny's voice cracked. You're manufacturing monks. I'm reviving civilization, Kurosawa said. Not as it was, but as it should have been. Lu stared at the rows of bodies. You're building an army. Kurosawa didn't deny it. Because memory must fight. It cannot rest in sanctuaries. It must walk, speak, defend itself. Danny stepped forward. And when they awaken, what then? They will rewrite the world, Kurosawa said. Starting with you. The scrolls surrounding him ignited with firelight. He raised his arms, and the glyphs across his skin erupted in gold. I am the final pen, he declared. The last line. And then he struck. The force hit Danny like a hurricane. He flew backward, landing hard against the obsidian wall. Sigils danced before his eyes. Kurosawa advanced, hands shaping air into blades. Memories into weapons. Lu jumped forward, intercepting with a defensive glyph, but Kurosawa was too fast. Your ink is borrowed, he growled. Mine is born. He slammed a palm into Lu's chest. A shockwave. Lu collapsed. Danny rose, blood on his lip. He reached inward, not to the archive, but to the echo vault still buried in his soul. He remembered a choice never taken. You could have destroyed the order. But you didn't. He didn't need to win. He needed to reveal. He thrust his hands outward, and unleashed a burst of unfinished glyphs. Wild, unstable, raw possibility. Kurosawa screamed as they struck. His scrolls exploded. The walls cracked. And then everything went dark. The forge was collapsing. Obsidian walls split like glass under pressure. Sparks flew from the shattered glyphs. The floor cracked beneath their feet, revealing the ink-threaded veins that powered the sanctuary's hidden vaults. Screams echoed from the dreaming vessels still sealed in the memory pods, now flickering. Failing, Danny pulled Lu to his feet, one arm slung over his shoulder. Mei Lin stumbled beside them, coughing through the smoke. Behind them, Kurosawa lay crumpled beneath a pile of fallen scrolls, his robes scorched. Eyes vacant, but breathing, his body pulsed faintly with residual glyphlight. He's not dead, Lu rasped. No, Danny said, but everything he built is. They hurried down the corridor toward the elevator shaft, now blocked by collapsed stone. With no other exit, Mei Lin pointed to the emergency tunnel, an old escape route carved by the original Lai artisans. They descended into the shadows. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became. The hum of collapsing memory faded into silence. But inside Danny's mind, something was very much alive. The glyphs that Kurosawa had triggered were still burning beneath his skin, not in pain, but in code, activated symbols, and within them was a choice that would shape more than a life. It would shape reality itself. They emerged hours later, through a hidden vent in the outer wall of a Shinto shrine. The Tokyo dawn had begun to rise. Light broke through the storm clouds, casting golden streaks across the rooftops. The city continued. No panic, no chaos. The forge had existed beneath its feet for years. Unseen, untouched, and now, undone. Danny sat on the stone steps, staring at his hands. The glow was fading, not disappearing, but settling. Like the ink had reached the edge of its story. Lu sat beside him. You still carry it? Danny nodded. All of it. Mei Lin walked up to them, holding a sealed paper scroll, the last surviving record salvaged from Kurosawa's vault. Whatever he tried to do, she said, you stopped it. Danny looked out at the skyline. No, I paused it, but the archive is still inside me. The echo vault, too, the memory of everything we were, and weren't. Lu was quiet a moment, then said, what will you do with it? Danny looked at the scroll. It's not about me. It's about what memory is for. That night, they found shelter in a small temple north of the city. Mei Lin built a fire in the old brazier while Lu meditated silently beneath a canopy of sakura branches. Danny sat alone in the shrine's inner sanctum. The echo vault inside him was still humming, low, ancient, infinite. It offered him paths, timelines, possibilities. One in which the order rebuilt. One where the archive was released online, digitized as a living language. One where every erased monk was resurrected in virtual memory. One where he burned it all. His fingers hovered above the final glyph on his palm. The choice. A glyph that hadn't existed before. A creation of his own hand. A new sigil. Not of forgetting. Not of preservation. But of balance. He called it, Hey G. Harmony of memory. At dawn, he stepped outside. Lou and Mei Lin stood waiting. Well? Mei Lin asked. Danny smiled faintly. I've written a new archive. He said, one that doesn't rewrite history, but teaches us how to live with it. Lou raised an eyebrow. What does that mean? Danny held up his hand. The glyph glowed gently, no longer burning. No longer threatening. It means people will forget what they must. But they'll remember what they need. He looked out toward the sunrise. And they'll choose. 1 year later, Brooklyn. The Needle Saints tattoo shop reopened under new ownership. But Danny was still there. Some evenings, quietly, sketching designs in the back room. No lasers. No vaults. Just ink. Word had spread online about the Inkkeeper Archive, a digital museum of tattoo histories. Linked to lost cultures. No names. No religions. Just symbols and stories. Some called it a myth. Others said it had saved them. Occasionally, a traveler would walk in, asking for a specific design. A spiral. A knot. A breath sigil. And Danny would smile, pull out his pen, and say, let's tell your story.